An all-seater stadium is a sports stadium in which every spectator has a seat. This is commonplace in association football stadiums in nations such as the United Kingdom, Spain, and the Netherlands. Most association football, American football stadiums in the United States and Canadian Football League stadiums in Canada are all-seaters, as are most baseball and track and field stadiums in those countries. A stadium that is not an all-seater has areas for attendees holding standing room-only tickets to stand and view to the proceedings. Such standing areas were known as terraces in Britain. Stands with only terraces used to dominate the football attendance in the UK. For instance, the South Bank stand behind the southern goal at Molineux Stadium, Wolverhampton, home of Wolverhampton Wanderers FC, had a maximum of 32,000 standing attenders, while the rest of the stadium hosted a little bit less than that. Some European countries, such as Germany, do not have all-seater stadiums. German fans expressed a preference to stand while watching football, so the country's grounds have large terrace areas. For instance, Borussia Dortmund's Westfalenstadion has an all-seated capacity of 65,829, but during Bundesliga games the attendance limit is set to 80,667. In the United Kingdom, in 1977, Clydebank, a relatively small club, were promoted to the Scottish Premier Division. At the time, the grounds of clubs in Britain were required to comply with the Safety of Sports Grounds Act if the capacity was above 10,000. Clydebank, faced with a large bill to ensure compliance, decided to reduce the capacity of Kilbowie Park to 9,950 by bolting wooden bench seating to the terraces, which were open to the elements. Kilbowie thereby became the first all-seater ground in Britain, albeit as a response to an unforeseen problem rather than a long-term plan. Aberdeen followed suit in 1978, putting benches on the open South Terrace as the final part of a longer-term plan to make the ground all-seated. Subsequent to this, the south side of the ground was covered over, and Pittodrie Stadium was proclaimed as the country's first all-seated, all-covered ground, although the southern corners of the ground remained open to the skies. In 1981, Coventry City converted Highfield Road to all-seating, the first club in England to do so, at the instigation of the then-chairman, Jimmy Hill. This move, forced on the fans, proved unpopular, with attendances declining, and terracing was reinstated at one end by 1985. In 1986, Luton Town converted the Kenilworth Road Stadium to all-seater status as one of the consequences of the Luton Town vs Millwall hooligan riot during their FA Cup sixth-round match on 13 March 1985. This was therefore the first all-seater stadium in England, the first English professional football club to convert to all seats following the watershed of the 1989 Hillsborough Stadium disaster, was Ipswich Town's Portman Road in 1992. The other ground often cited as all-seated in Britain before 1990 was Ibrox, home of Rangers. However, although Ibrox had no terracing after the redevelopment which was completed in 1981, there was still a significant standing area in the enclosure, the front portion of the old main stand. St Johnstone opened the first purpose-built all-seater football stadium in the United Kingdom weeks after the Hillsborough disaster, with the opening of McDiarmid Park in August 1989. All-seater stadiums have been compulsory in the English Premiership since the start of the 1994-95 season as a result of the Taylor Report. which gave recommendations to improve stadium safety after the Hillsborough disaster. The initial plan, drawn up in 1990, had recommended that standing areas should be banned from stadiums in the upper two tiers of the league from 1994 onwards, while stadiums in the lower two tiers had until 1999 to meet these requirements. A review of the proposals in 1992 saw non-Premiership and second-tier clubs retained the option to have standing areas. From time to time there are calls for Premiership stadiums to be allowed to have standing areas, but these have always been rejected. Worldwide, FIFA, UEFA and CONCACAF also mandate that all matches in competitions that they control be held in all-seater stadiums. This means that in countries where standing terraces are commonplace, either the stadiums cannot be used at all, or the standing areas must be closed to spectators. Either temporary seats have to be installed, or the standing areas must be converted to seating. Many cricket stadiums in South Africa, New Zealand and Australia are not all-seaters. Many areas of the ground provide grass banks offering cheaper entry. This means that spectators can sit on the grass. Classic examples of this include the Adelaide Oval, the WACA ground in Perth and the Basin Reserve in Wellington. North American stadiums rarely have standing room terraces, rather, many stadiums have bleacher seating, which are tiered seating areas using flat benches and are usually uncovered. In most large facilities, bleachers are in a relatively small section far from the playing field, and are often referred to as the cheap seats. Because standing room terraces are so uncommon, the term all-seater is not generally used. When standing room areas do exist, they are generally not sold separately from seats, but rather are provided for spectators who wish to view a portion of the game from a different angle, or are admission-free. A notable exception to this is the NFL Washington Redskins FedEx Field, which contains a terrace-style standing room-only section in the higher areas above each end zone. The Boston Red Sox baseball team offers standing room tickets when a game is sold out. The Detroit Red Wings and Detroit Tigers both offer standing room-only seating. There are no major standing room terraces, rather people stand along the edges of the concourses directly at the back of the seating areas.